We will be the first line of defense for anybody that's in the American homeland. We will do everything that we can to protect the American people. We have jurisdiction over people who live here, people who leave here, and people who come here.
She just started and she's getting results. Fresh off her confirmation, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on hand as ICE agents launched a raid in New York City, taking one man into custody. Good morning and welcome to the second hour, First Edition, only on Newsmax 2. I'm John Burnett.
And I'm Krisha Lenzo. It's Wednesday, January 29th. The administration, as you said, John, really wasting no time getting right to work on fixing the border. They also apprehended an individual who was leading Transgender, one of the key gangs that we're seeing pop up everywhere.
And there's so many other people running scared, and they should be.
Yeah.
Let's bring in our political panel. This morning, we're joined by Melanie Collette. She's a former vice chair of the Women's Republican Federation in New Jersey, and she's the host of Money Talk with Melanie. Also joining us is Theron Bond. She's a Democratic strategist. This is going to be explosive, folks, so let's dive right in.
Great to have you both. Starting with this, Caroline Leavitt hit the ground running on her first day as White House press secretary. Take a look.
Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions. America is once again respected on the world stage. The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. I think there's only uncertainty in this room amongst the media. There's no uncertainty in this building. So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify. What I can.
So how'd she do, Melanie?
I thought she did a great job. I didn't get to listen to all of it, unfortunately, because I had to run into a meeting. I was enthralled, though, and I did see some of the highlights later on in the day. But I thought, listen, she's a 27-year-old, fully qualified for the job. No DEI hire here. I thought she did a phenomenal job.
So, Theron, let's get right to it. Let's talk about the ICE raids that's going on around the country, but specifically in New York. Both Mayor Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul defending the crackdown. People are fed up. So why are people, mainly on the left, trying to push back on these public safety efforts by getting these criminals out of our communities, off our streets, and back to where they came from?
Well, it's the way and the tone in which they're doing it. They're just rounding up people, and there are some people who have been brought here and come here and gone through the process legally that are getting caught up in these roundups. I mean, first of all, we got Kristi Noem, or Secretary Noem now, who's showing up, bright and pretty like it's an Instagram photo shoot, and these are serious matters taking place in this country. So when we talk about coming and being serious and being ready to work, these are people who are being split between their families. These are kids. These are not just adults. This is everybody. And unfortunately, they're not getting a lot of follow through. And the process is still flawed. And we have criminals that we have yet to deal with domestically. And the bigger question is, let's just say President Trump rounds up all the immigrants in New York and all across this country, and then there's still crime. What's going to be the answer? So just because someone migrated here doesn't automatically make them a criminal, and just because they went through an immigration process doesn't give them, is not fair for them to be intimidated by potential ICE raids. And that's the tone that President Trump is setting, is that America is not welcome for everybody, despite him wanting it to be diverse and unifying.
The focal point.
hold
on, Melanie. The focal point are the illegal criminals. That is the focal point.
That's what he said.
I love having you on, but every time you're on, I feel like I'm in a relationship. You're saying, John, you're right, but it's the tone. It's the tone. No. Look, we have to get these people out of here, period. Was it tone when a woman was burning on the subway? Was it tone when people were pushed on the tracks?
About that.
Come on now, let's stop it.
Yeah, Melanie.
Listen, I think we hear all the time on the left when it comes to migrant crime, like young girls being raped, murdered, tied to trees, that it's very rare that the rate at which migrants are committing these crimes is very low. So I would argue that the rate at which legal people who are here illegally get caught up in a raid is very rare. So we should just accept it. It should be okay. Like, I really am not going to buy this argument and feel sorry for people who are already in the wrong when you are in places that you shouldn't be and you get caught up in a raid with people who have committed worse crimes than breaking into the country. I don't feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for the women and girls and boys, quite frankly, who are being trafficked or who are in slave labor, because the Biden administration did not keep well enough track or vet these people well enough when they came into our country. I'm going to save my sympathy and my tears for those people, for those children. And
right.
I just really don't understand how, on the one hand, you can say, oh, well, the crime is really rare, but then just completely lose your mind and be oh so upset because an innocent person who's here illegally gets caught up in a raid. That is
right.
not the way that works. And it doesn't make any sense to me at all, just from a common sense perspective.
Yeah, Democrats love to cut off water. They need to drop those tears.
But Theron, going back to your previous point,
you know that, John.
I just want to go back to your previous point, Theron, about President Trump and his success with respect to what we're seeing. I mean, border crossings are basically at a standstill, and he's only been in office about a week and a half. We need to change the narrative. And Caroline Leavitt, I keep bringing up this quotation because I loved it, when asked how many of these migrants being deported have a criminal record versus just being here illegally, she said, all of them. They broke our laws. They are criminals as far as the administration goes. So yes, Theron, I mean, there needs to be a culture shift here, as Caroline Leavitt said, to view these people who are here illegally as criminals, because that's who they are. They broke our laws. You're a criminal if you break the law.
That's what they want us to believe, is that it's everyone. And that's also what they said they were going to do on the campaign trail.
No,
so
there's a specific statute that is associated with breaking into the country illegally. Meaning you broke the law when you break into the country illegally. There's a legal statute that you're violating.
Have been caught up.
So Theron, let me tell you how it works for citizens, right? So if someone is wanted for murder, and I happen to be in their presence, talking with them, socializing with them, when the raid happens to get that murderer, and let's say I have a warrant because some other misdemeanor, lesser crime, guess what? They're not just going to let me walk away,
exactly.
right? So,
exactly.
so similarly, let's say an illegal actually, one, committed a violent crime, let's say rape, and another person, you know, they may have committed a lesser crime, but the first crime they committed is crossing the border. They get swept up. It is what it is. We can argue, but those are the laws and those are the facts. But we got to move on. I want to bring something else in that's equally as explosive, but we're going to start off with Melanie first. President Trump pushing the pause button on funding for federal grants and loans and offering millions of federal workers 8-month salary if they resign. So what's your reaction to that, Melanie?
Love it. Love every bit of it. And the fact that people are, and to be clear, I know that the administration has said it, and other organizations have said it, individuals who are receiving government funds like Social Security and things like that, they are not affected by this. But what President Trump is doing is saying, hey, let's say we are severely in the red, like well over $1 trillion in the red and in debt. Maybe we should look at how we're spending. So we're going to look at these grants and these loans and make sure that this is money that the American people should be spending. It's like actually being careful with other people's money, which is what a businessman would do. And while the federal government is not a businessman, is not a business, I would assert that you should be even more careful because you're not dealing with a business's money. You're dealing with other people's money. You're dealing with the American people's money that you compel them to pay. So you should do your due diligence and make sure that you're spending it appropriately. So I love every bit of this. The administration is going to save millions of dollars by putting this program in place. And I think you federal employees should just take full advantage of it. Take your 8 months off with your 8 months pay and find a new job and stop sucking the life out of the taxpayers of America.
Yeah, I mean, Theron, curious to get your reaction to this. I'm sure you're against President Trump's executive order, but in many ways it makes sense because until we can really analyze where all the hard-earned taxpayer dollars are going, we might need to take a pause. And unfortunately, sometimes that means pausing certain programs, but in the long term, they will renew them and allow them to go forward. But curious to hear your perspective, Theron.
Well, if we were going to take a look at programs and where money is going, we probably should have looked at the repeated audits in defense spending that have failed to the tune of trillions of dollars. And that bottom line far exceeds what's affected by these federal loans and grants pauses. That's number one. If we're going to look at analyzing something. But what these federal grants and loans do, one, they allow for people who are on Pell Grant scholarships, like the one that I had when I went through undergrad, to be available to folks that may no longer be available. This also allows kids who are on free or reduced lunch to have access to food. So we're not just talking about adults here who are 18 plus years of age or older being able to access services. We're also talking about young people. And for the Republican Party to be so pro-life, they sure seem to put so many boundaries and barriers on being able to live a full, successful, and thriving life. And starting with kids, they say they love kids. We love the children. It's about better educating them and making sure they can thrive. Yet the first thing they want to do is take away their ability to do something as simple as have breakfast and lunch. And that is disgusting to me. We can't talk about unifying this country and making and his executive orders don't reflect that.
Hold on, Melanie. Hold on. You know what? Every time Theron's on, I know I got to watch my tone, right? But blah, blah, blah. Let me read something to you, right? The CEO of Meals on Wheels, average salary is $597,000 or $287 an hour. Why is a person, we got to feed the children, and we do. We got to feed people. So why is the CEO of Meals on Wheels, which depends on government funding, why is that CEO making $597,000, Melanie?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when people in the private sector make that kind of money, the left are the first to run to the hilltops and scream about them making too much money and why don't they give it to the workers and et cetera, et cetera. That's a great question. So why should somebody who's subsidized by the government be making that kind of money? After all, it's supposed to be a public service, and this altruistic thing that they're doing, you would think that you would be a CEO for free, or maybe like a tenth of that money.
Exactly. And that is the wasteful spending, forcing these nonprofits to be fiscally responsible on the taxpayer dime.
Mm-hmm. That's a rare occasion in a CEO salary, which it should not be. It should never be that much.
Rare occasions don't work for border
should not be that
criminals,
much.
but now it works for this.
CEOs that don't even make close to that amount of money. But as long as Elon Musk can buy an election and Trump can have billionaire and trillionaire CEOs around him, then we shouldn't be looking at anybody else's salary.
Elon Musk is from is the private sector.
Private, yeah. But Melanie, I want to close a loop on this, shifting gears here a little bit. We heard, as mentioned from Caroline Leavitt yesterday, and she talked about the drones, saying that actually the government knew about them and this was completely authorized. But I mean, why did it take so long, and why didn't we hear from the Biden administration? There was so much chaos.
I heard I did listen to her presser in time to hear that, and I was like, what in the world? And I was talking to a friend of mine who's retired E9, and he said, like, sometimes the government has to hide things from you. I said, but do you understand that this is why people don't trust the government? Well, they're telling us now. Why didn't they tell us before? And we still haven't gotten to the actual bottom of why they were doing it. And then now I want to know why the Biden administration completely lied to the American people. They could tell us that it's a confidential mission from the military, that the military is doing research. I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, what I was told by my friend was that they didn't want the enemy to know what they were doing. He even defended the whole Chinese spy balloon and letting that go because they were getting intel. I thought that was weird, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the government is not being forthright and transparent with regard to these drones, balloons, and everything else that's going on. And they need to. But I want to get one more controversial topic in before we let you ladies go. President Trump signed an executive order banning chemical castration, medical mutilation of innocent children. You know, these are decisions that if they want to change their sex, let them do it as an adult, not as a child. In many of these local cities and states, trying to double down, trying to give children the right to do that, even against their parents' will, when they're not of lawful age. Do you support that, Theron?
I think that it's rich that Republicans want to say that parents should have more choice when it comes to school vouchers, yet they want to take away parents' ability to make decisions for their own kids. Nobody knows their kid better than that parent or grandparent or whichever adult in their family is responsible for them. No one. Your parents don't know you better. No one knows you better than your parents. Nobody knows me better than my parents, period. And at the end of the day, now we're overreaching into people's medical decisions and their health care, and it should be up to them. Something that hasn't been mentioned in any of these conversations when it comes to gender or health care is the fact that there are a very small percentage, but it does exist, of individuals who are born intersex, which means their body reflects gender of both binary genders that we know, both male and female, and nobody's taking into consideration what laws like this mean.
So why do you have to cast a wide net and include everyone if that's a small percentage? Intersex is a small percentage of the population. So draft something for the small percentage of population, not cast a wide net. That is the problem with the Democrat solution and philosophy.
And sometimes, want somebody to discipline your child, and you don't want somebody to make medical decisions for your child.
And as you mentioned in your opening, John, sometimes they override the parent and have these minors able to get these surgeries and these chemical castrations and things like that. So they're not considering the will of the parent. Your frontal lobe is not even developed yet when you are a child. It's not developed until your early 20s. And you're making lifelong permanent decisions as a child. It makes absolutely no sense. I couldn't even get my second ear piercing until I was like 18 years old. But I could change my sex.
Why? Because your mom wouldn't let you, right?
And this executive order was the right thing to do.
I don't know. I'm going to make this provocative statement. Black women need to get it together, all the way from Michelle Obama all the way down, because this is ridiculous. Theron Bond and Melanie Collette, thank you so much for joining First Edition.